is
I
that?
hope he's not staying.
Yeah.
I just got like throw up in my mouth.
It's a boy named Soup.
How do you do?
He was one of the most beloved faces on Storage Wars, the scrappy underdog with a bad boy past. For over a decade, Jared Schultz was appointment television. Then, one day, he was just gone.
Come on, wait, up. Go a little forward, now go back.
What?
Back.
Aw, you broke the radio. Seriously?
The truth behind what happened to Jared Schultz is stranger, sadder, and more complicated than any storage locker he ever cracked open. So what really happened to Jared? And why did he disappear from the screens?
A lot of furniture. Yeah, I like it.
I don't see too much that I don't like. This locker has everything we need to fill the store. I'm going all in on this one.
Join us as we pull back the curtain on Jarrod Schultz's life. The man who came from nothing. Before Storage Wars turned dumpster diving into a career, Jarrod Schultz was basically a ghost in California. Born in 1977, his childhood wasn't exactly a paved road to success. He spent his early years obsessed with locks and safes, ripping things apart just to see how they worked. While that kind of habit eventually filled his bank account, it also led him straight into some miserable situations long before the reality TV fame kicked in. By his early 20s, Jared had become tangled up in the world of drugs. According to public records and reporting by Starcasm, he was arrested on January 27, 1997, on a felony possession of a controlled substance charge. He was approximately 20 years old at the time. He pleaded guilty and received a 60-day sentence. Most people would call that a close call, a warning shot, a chance to course correct. Jared did not take it. Within weeks of his release, while still on probation, Jared was caught again. This time, the charge was more serious. He was arrested for transporting narcotics and driving under the influence. The judge, reportedly unimpressed with the speed of his return to criminal behavior, sentenced him to 16 months in state prison. Jarrod Schultz, the future television star, was going back behind bars. But something happened inside that prison that Jared would later describe as the turning point of his life. According to a source cited by Reality Weekly in 2012, living alongside violent offenders made Jared realize with stunning clarity that he was on a path to becoming one of them. "He's not a bad guy," the source said. "He went through a dark few years there, and drugs were at the root." It was 16 months that changed everything. After his release, Jared rebuilt himself one choice at a time. He took a job as a sales manager at a carpet cleaning company, which is where, in 1999, he met a young woman named Brandy Passante. He opened a clothing company called Outlaw Apparel in 2002. He discovered the world of storage unit auctions, where people bid on the abandoned contents of unpaid lockers, gambling on hidden treasures inside. It was chaotic, unpredictable, and competitive. It suited him perfectly. Nobody watching those early episodes of Storage Wars had any idea just how far Jarrod Schultz had already traveled to reach that auction yard. And nobody could have predicted how much further he still had to fall.
Whoa.
What is it?
Teacup. These are pretty unique. I've never seen cups like this.
You think this matches this?
Maybe. They might be worth something. See if I can find somebody to tell us about them.
The young guns rise to fame. In 2010, some genius decided to film people bidding on abandoned trash and called it entertainment. Storage Wars introduced a bunch of loud personalities who spent their lives digging through lockers for leftover junk. There was Dave Hester yelling like an idiot, Barry Weiss acting like a cartoon character, and Daryl Sheets doing whatever it is he does. Then there were Jarrod Schultz and Brandy Passante, the couple that everyone liked because they looked as stressed and broke as the rest of the world. The producers knew what they had. Jared and Brandy were young, attractive, and visibly in love. They bickered like any real couple would while making actual business decisions under pressure. Fans called them the Young Guns, and the nickname stuck. Where the other cast members brought experience and polish, Jared and Brandy brought raw ambition and a genuine sense that they were figuring everything out in real time. Jared was a natural on camera. He was loud, emotional, and honest in a way that reality television rarely captures. When he won a bid, the joy was real. When he made a mistake, the frustration was real. He had a habit of overbidding, taking risks that made viewers hold their breath, sometimes paying off spectacularly, and sometimes ending in embarrassing defeat. That unpredictability made him impossible not to watch. By the time A&E approached the couple about their own spin-off, Jared and Brandy had become two of the most recognizable faces in reality television. The spin-off, titled Brandy and Jared, Married to the Job, premiered in 2014. Despite the title, the couple had never actually married, a fact that reportedly surprised many viewers. But the show documented their attempt to build a retail empire together, opening now and then thrift stores in California using inventory acquired from their Storage Wars exploits. By all outward appearances, they had made it. Former convict turned television star. Unknown carpet cleaner turned small business owner. It was the kind of American comeback story that people love. And it was also, allegedly, starting to crack behind the scenes in ways that the cameras were not capturing. What was really happening inside their relationship during those peak years is something that would only come to light much later. And it would change the way fans saw everything.
You want a bullet?
Oh my God. Are you gonna bowl right now?
Yeah, right. Told you, so watch your feet.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, are you okay?
The cracks begin to show. Looking back now, viewers who rewatched old episodes of Storage Wars began to notice things they had initially dismissed as entertainment. The bickering between Jared and Brandy was not always playful. There were moments when Jared's energy shifted, when the volume rose beyond what any scripted argument would require, and when Brandy's body language told a different story than the one being narrated for the camera. According to people close to the production, the tension between the two had been escalating off-camera for years. Multiple sources have alleged that Jared struggled with alcohol during the later seasons of the show, a detail that reportedly concerned those around him. Whether or not that specific claim is accurate, what is documented is that, by 2019, Jared was already accumulating new legal problems. According to Starcasm, he was charged with resisting an officer after an incident in Lake Forest, California, on July 12, 2019, near the location of his bar, the Rush Bar and Grill. Jared had purchased the Rush Bar and Grill in April 2019, expanding his entrepreneurial footprint beyond storage lockers and thrift stores. On the surface, it seemed like another smart business move, the natural evolution of a self-made man. But bars, as any therapist will tell you, have a way of concentrating exactly the kind of stress, alcohol, and confrontation that are bad for people still fighting their own demons. Meanwhile, Brandy had already ended the relationship. According to her own admission in a June 2020 interview on the Dad Diary YouTube channel, the couple split in the fall of 2018 after they completed filming the 12th season of Storage Wars. They had been together for nearly 20 years. They had 2 children together, Cameron and Peyton. They had never married despite the wedding planning documented on their spin-off. And now it was over. The couple did not announce the split publicly at first. They continued to appear on the show, maintaining a professional awkwardness for the cameras while their personal lives moved in separate directions. Brandy later revealed that she had not been allowed to develop her own identity during the relationship, describing the years that followed the breakup as a period of finally coming into her own. That description, heard in hindsight, suggested a dynamic that fans had not fully recognized while watching. Whatever had been simmering for years was about to boil over in a very public, very documented, and very ugly way.
Brandy, come here. Come here, you. Hey.
What?
Say $5,000.
Why?
God, why not $1 million?
Well, you know what? Even if we can't sell them right away, we can use them.
The night that changed everything. April 30th, 2021. It was a Friday night in Orange County, California. Brandy Passante was out with a group of friends at a bar in Lake Forest, enjoying what should have been a normal evening. Then Jared Schultz walked in. What happened next was reported by TMZ and later confirmed by the Orange County District Attorney's Office, and it would end Jarrod Schultz's television career permanently. According to law enforcement sources, a heated argument broke out between the two exes. Brandy reportedly told Jared to leave. He did not. According to TMZ, Jared allegedly shoved her twice while yelling at her and the group she was with. By the time police arrived at the scene, Jared had left. Officers took a report, and a few days later, investigators spoke with Jared directly. He denied ever touching Brandy. The Orange County District Attorney's Office was not persuaded. In May 2021, Jarrod Schultz was charged with 1 count of misdemeanor domestic violence battery. The Orange County DA confirmed the charge, listing the victim as a Jane Doe described as someone he previously had a relationship with. It did not take long for the identity of that Jane Doe to become public knowledge. Brandy Passante, the woman who had stood beside him for nearly 2 decades, was the victim named in the report. A&E launched an internal investigation almost immediately. According to Fox News, the network began a probe to determine the future of Jarrod Schultz on the show. His role was described as being in limbo. Representatives for the network declined to comment publicly on the details of their inquiry, but the message was clear enough. The Young Guns partnership, the backbone of storage wars for over a decade, was finished. Brandy, for her part, had been leaving breadcrumbs for fans about the state of her life for some time. She had reportedly placed a demon emoji over Jared's face on a promotional poster she shared. She had spoken about finding her identity again after years of not being permitted to have one. And on October 3rd, 2021, she got a new tattoo. The word "free" with a bird flying away from the final letter. On her middle finger. Some signals you have to see to understand. And that one was impossible to misread.
I'll stay down here by these guys and you go stand down there. And we'll bid against each other. I'll throw them off. They won't know what's going on.
A pattern becomes clear. The charge did not arrive in isolation. When journalists and fans began digging into the timeline of Jarrod Schultz's legal troubles in the years surrounding the show's hiatus, a pattern emerged that was difficult to ignore. The resisting officer charge from 2019, the domestic violence charge from 2021, and then, as Starcasm exclusively revealed, a driving under the influence charge with a violation date of October 5th, 2021, just months after the bar incident. 3 open criminal cases, 3 separate incidents across 3 years. According to Orange County court records, all 3 cases were at various points being handled simultaneously, with hearings scheduled and repeatedly pushed back. As of mid-2023, reports indicated that a jury trial for the domestic violence battery charge was scheduled, while the DUI and resisting arrest cases were also moving through pre-trial hearings. Legal observers speculated that Jared's attorneys were attempting to negotiate a plea arrangement that would avoid an actual trial. The accumulated weight of these charges painted a portrait that was increasingly hard to reconcile with the lovable, reckless underdog fans had watched on television for 13 seasons. Jared Schultz had always been marketed as the rough-around-the-edges guy who found the straight and narrow through love, family, and hard work. The reality appearing in court documents told a more complicated story. Sources close to Jared allegedly told outlets at the time that he had been struggling with personal demons that intensified after the breakup with Brandy, and that the stress of the legal proceedings, combined with the collapse of his television career, had created a downward spiral he was fighting to escape. Whether those allegations are accurate is impossible to confirm. What is confirmed is that by the end of 2021, Jarrod Schultz had not appeared on Storage Wars, had not made any significant public statements, and had essentially disappeared from the world that had made him famous. Meanwhile, Brandy continued on the show without him. She continued building her life, her social media presence, and her identity as a single mother and independent businesswoman. The contrast between their two trajectories could not have been more stark. But the question everyone was beginning to ask was not just what Jared had done. It was unclear whether anything remained of the man he had rebuilt himself into after prison, or whether that version of Jarrod Schultz had been the real one at all.
We need something to help bring new people into the store.
Okay.
I don't know if it's putting something cool in the front window, but it's just putting something...
To wow people.
Sure.
Life after the cameras. Once the cameras stopped rolling and the fame dried up, Jarrod Schultz basically vanished into a much quieter, probably less profitable life. Based on the few times he actually posted anything online, he spent most of his energy on the Rush Bar and Grill in Lake Forest. He bought the place in 2019 and tried to brand himself as a family man and a self-made businessman just looking to run a decent local spot. He kept the beer flowing and the doors open even while his legal problems were piling up in the background. He also, according to his social media, began a new romantic relationship with a woman named Rochelle Beckman. Jared shared photos with her, presenting a picture of someone attempting to move forward and construct something new from the wreckage of the previous years. Whether that construction was genuine transformation or simply the latest chapter in a cycle of behavior is something only those closest to him could say with any certainty. His children, Cameron and Peyton, were notably absent from his public-facing social media during this period. Brandy, who had become an increasingly active presence on platforms like TikTok and Instagram, rarely referenced Jared, and never in warm terms. Their co-parenting arrangement, if one existed, appeared to be conducted entirely out of public view. Brandy described herself as a single mom, and her posts consistently reflected a life being rebuilt around her children and her own independence. Jared's clothing company, Outlaw Apparel, which he had founded back in 2002, also maintained a reduced presence during this period. The brand had benefited enormously from his television exposure, and without that promotional engine, its visibility had naturally declined. The name itself carried a certain irony now, having begun as a fashion statement and ended up feeling like an unintentional biography. Sources allegedly close to Jared suggested to entertainment outlets that he was aware of the damage to his reputation and was quietly trying to rebuild, focusing on the bar business and keeping a low profile while his legal cases worked their way through the court system. Whether A&E or any other network would ever welcome him back to television seemed, to most industry observers, deeply unlikely.
I think they're for like beer fest.
Oktoberfest?
Yeah, that thing.
They're muttons and buttons.
Berlin.
Say it with the accent.
Coke and half.
Coke and half.
I like my Coke and whole.
What the legacy of Jarrod Schultz actually means. Jared Schultz doesn't fit into the neat little box that reality TV likes to build for people. He wasn't some total villain, but he wasn't exactly a victim of bad luck either. He was just a messy guy who managed to crawl out of one disaster, build a bit of success, and then drove the whole thing right back into a ditch. It's a pretty standard cycle of making something of yourself just to watch it fall apart again, and it is almost impressive to work that hard at a second chance just to end up right back where you started. For the millions of viewers who watched Storage Wars across its run, Jared represented something specific and appealing. He was the guy who did not come from money, who did not have connections, and who used sheer aggression and instinct to compete against people with more resources and more experience. There was something genuinely inspiring about watching him and Brandy succeed on television when they so easily could have not made it out of their respective hard years at all. But inspiration built on an incomplete picture eventually collapses when the full picture emerges. And what emerged about Jarrod Schultz was not the story of a fully reformed man. It was the story of a man who was still, in many ways, at war with himself. According to people who knew the couple, the dynamic between Jared and Brandy had allegedly been difficult for a long time, and what played out in that Orange County bar in April 2021 was not a sudden explosion, but the final public eruption of something that had been building for years. Brandy Passante came out of the whole mess looking pretty decent. She dropped the dead weight, focused on her own life, and kept her career moving without the extra baggage. That tattoo on her middle finger probably says more about the situation than any scripted interview ever could. Meanwhile, Storage Wars just kept rolling along without Jared. The producers brought in some new faces, invented some new drama, and kept the machine running because the show always matters more than the people in it. The whole Jarrod Schultz situation makes everyone wonder if people actually change or if they just get better at hiding. It is hard to know if spending over a year in prison actually fixes a person, or if they are just biding their time. Maybe the way someone is wired just eventually takes over again, no matter how many thrift stores they open or how many times they end up on television. His story doesn't really give a straight answer. Instead, it just leaves things feeling pretty messy and unfinished. It is comforting to think we can reinvent ourselves, but sometimes a fresh coat of paint just hides a house that is still falling apart. Is the story of Jarrod Schultz a cautionary tale, a tragedy, or proof that some people simply cannot escape who they were? Was he ever truly the man Storage Wars told us he was? Share your thoughts in the comments. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. And click the next video on your screen right now.